Brilliant. Okay. Because the topic for today can venture out into a bit of technical domain, I will really like to know the people around here. How many of you are actually students? Right, student? How many of you are lawyers? Right, lawyer? In the chat. So there are many students. I can conclude that most of the people here are students, right? There are few lawyers or advocates, but most people here are students. Okay. Okay. So how many of you have actually been exposed to this topic? Like you hear frequently that there are startup entities which have funding grounds and they are gathering investment from angel investors or venture capital investors or private equity investors. How many of you have heard about this? Heard somewhere, read somewhere, but not clear what it is. How many of you are in that zone? Bharti, you were a lawyer. Nirmal is not able to hear anything. Nirmal, I believe your audio needs to be worked on. The rest of the people can hear clearly. You probably increase the volume from your side or maybe change the settings from Zoom. Okay. Only Bharti? Other people. Okay. There are other people who have heard and read about it. Okay. How many of you people have ever worked on it during internships or during work for people who are lawyers? How many of you people have worked on investment transactions? Say worked. Worked. How many of you people worked on investment transactions? Yeah, PR worked. What about it? What about the other people? Okay. Madhavan, no. Bharathi, no. Heard about it but not worked on it. So I think it's safe to conclude that most people are in this zone that we have heard about it, read about it, but we have not worked on it, right? That's the kind of thing that we can draw. Okay, brilliant. So now just like we'll look at it very much like in a common sense or logical kind of manner. Okay, and we'll see simply like from a business person's point of view how things go about these transactions. Okay, and that's how we'll try to understand them. Okay, so does that make sense to you? Shall we go in that way? We'll do away with all learned things, right? We're not going to look at lawyerly things, but we're going to approach the things simply like in a common sense manner and try to understand the logic and the strategy and the business person's point of view. Okay, let's get into it. Here we go. Okay, so we will talk about what lawyers can do in this. Okay, so it's not like we are going to talk only from an entrepreneur's point of view. We will definitely talk about what lawyers can do and how do you get to know. Okay, that how will you do this? How will you advise on this? We'll talk about all of these things. Okay, but let's move forward a little. Okay, I seem to have dropped off for a little while there. I'm really sorry about that. But I can resume now. Yeah, I am back, and we aren't hearing a Terminator theme in that. Yeah. So why are startups looking for funding? That's where we were, right? So why do you think they need funds? Like, what is the basic purpose? Why do startup entities look for funding? Can someone say what is the purpose that they would be looking for funds for? To buy equipment. If it's a manufacturing startup, maybe investment to invest in what? For expansion. smoothly run their organizations for expansion, new technology, okay, presence in the market, advancement. No, I mean, just think from this point of view, right? Let's assume you and your friend or someone is starting a business, okay, and you have some money, you start up, and you start to do some work, you start to generate, sell some services or goods, and you start to earn some income, okay. But at some stage of time, what happens is you have a lot of plans to go about, right? You were thinking that if I had a little more money, maybe I could have developed this product. If I had a little more money, maybe I could have hired this person. If I had a little more money, maybe I could have gone into this area, right? So therefore, the point, as Nikhil has said, Nikhil, I think you hit the nail here, to scale up, right? So what happens is that otherwise, if you rely simply on the income that you're making, and many startups do that also, many startups are bootstrapped, and can make sufficient funds for their gradual planned expansions. But in certain cases, what is happening is that the investment that is required is higher. So, like, you need at that point of time, you need additional funds to develop those capabilities to serve the clients, right? I know of one startup, and startups can be anything. It's not just technology, software, or fancy things like that, which are all called startups, right? Startups can be startups which are food related startups, okay, like someone is starting a business where they are providing certain kind of snacks or something. It's still a startup nevertheless. Now what's happening is that suppose the product catches fire, okay, and there is a lot of demand for it, but your big problem is that you don't have the manufacturing capability even to meet your existing demand. It's going on increasing and you don't have that capability. You don't have even people on the ground to manage that thing. Okay, so now for that purposes, they will look for funding, and not only funding, they will look for guidance as well, okay, on how to manage the business. So that's why you will find that entities where if the demand catches up quickly, and they have to develop supply capability accordingly, okay, or they have identified a demand, they have not yet gone into that domain because they know that if we do that, then we don't have the capacity to supply. So now at that point of time, again, they'll be looking for funding, they'll be looking for guidance to put more people on the ground to be able to manage that. Okay, so that's why they'll be looking for funding, basically to scale up, as Nikhil has said. Okay, what kind of businesses or stages don't require funding? There are none. If the business is not going to require funding at any stage of time or any point of time, it will be a receding business. Okay, there'll be no business which is in such zone that it doesn't require funding. Now some people are able to fund themselves. Okay, they have grown, the revenue that is coming is so much that with the revenue itself or the margins itself, they are able to increase and provide more services. Okay, they are managing the costs very efficiently, and the revenue is growing. Now, in that cases, they may choose to be bootstrapped or self-funded. Okay, but otherwise, growing businesses will need funds to scale up, to expand into markets. They will need funds. Okay, inevitably. Okay, now where can they get funds from? What do you think? Where will businesses get the money from? Okay, you want to start a business tomorrow. You want to grow. Now you need funds. Whom will you go to? Angel investors, VC, banks, venture capitalists firm. Okay. Okay. What else? What are the other people saying? Okay. Family and friends. Why not? Parents' money. Yeah, so basically your family and friends, right? You will look at your internal sources. Sell kidney. Wow. No, you don't do that, okay? So banks, you can look for banks, okay? Why do you not see this? Like, why do you not uh, see lots of startups going to banks and getting loans for their business? There will be entities which go to loans. Also crowdfunding, yes, crowdfunding can also be there. Yeah, if it is a startup which makes sense to the public, okay, which makes sense, which is there with for a purpose, which appeals to a crowd or which appeals to people to put money into, then they may be looking at crowdfunding also. Sure, why not? Okay. Banks, why don't we find this? We find a lot of funding from PE, VC investors. Why do we not find people actually going to the banks, getting a lot of loans, and also, like, running the business with loans? Why can't we go to the banks? Bank charges interest. Okay. Okay. Any other reason? High interest rates. Banks have strict regulations. Okay. While VC and angel investor take equity. No hard assets as security is also there. Yes. Right. Late processes. Banks may require mortgages, share risks. Yeah. All of these are there, right? You're mandated to pay by VCs is okay. We'll come to that. But in debt, where you are taking a borrowing from someone, okay, you are mandated to pay an interest to them. There is no alternative. You have to pay an interest to them. Okay, whether your business succeeds, whether your business doesn't succeed, whatever happens, you have to pay the interest because you have taken the loan. Okay, and you also have to provide a security to them, and security has to look like really tangible assets. Now, in very some or rare cases, banks will accept IP as a security, but usually it needs to be like tangible assets which you provide them. There has to be something like a machinery or plant or equipment or something that they can actually see, okay, which they believe they can sell and make money out of. Okay. So you will look at that, or you will look at venture capital firms. Now, if the venture capital firms or angels or private equity investors, all of these categories, and we'll deal with when they come into the picture from. So, why would they put money in you? Why will they risk? They are not getting any interest. Why will they invest in your shares? What do they get out of it? What do they get? Product is good, margins are high, volume business. Maybe your idea clicks to them. Share in the profit, more money, good ROI, shares of the company, equity. Yeah, shares. We will get shares. I'll get share. Okay. But what do I do of that share? Ownership. Okay. It's a form of investment. True, everything. Okay. Dividend income, returns, management. See, dividend. Okay. And just contrast dividend with interest. You will get only if the company is making profit. You don't get dividend otherwise. ROI and fame, richer valuation. They get board seat, participation in decision making. Yeah, but where is the money coming from, man? The bank is getting a fixed interest. Dividend the VCs will get if the company is making profit. What if the idea doesn't click? Okay, it doesn't click. It's not selling after that. There's no expansion. Then what will happen after that? So what else are you looking for other than a dividend? Then sell the security deposit. But who will buy? Who will buy the share, Bushra? They may want to resell their equity. Who will buy it? Who will buy it? Because if the company is not making profit, why will someone buy the shares? Why will someone buy a stake in it? These are absolutely common sense questions. Huh? We are not even getting into law. Employee stock options is a very different thing. We'll come to that. Security as intangible assets, yeah, distressed assets. But VC investors or PE investors don't get security. So why would they invest in your company? That's the question. Why will they invest in a company if they are not mandatorily getting any interest? Why will they invest? Business idea must be impactful and they have to show customer base to get future interests. They invest in the idea of the startup. Assuming future. So companies, okay. The company is making profits. All right. Lots of profits, let's say. They're holding shares. The company is making lot of profit. Now what do I get? I am holding a share in my demat account or I'm holding a share certificate because mostly these companies tend to be private companies. So let's say I am an investor and I'm holding a share certificate, okay, for the company. Now the company is making lot of profit, okay, but it may declare dividend, may not declare dividend. Then what do I get? What do I get? What do I get out of it? What do I get out of it, guys? Exit the startup when equity shares appreciate. Valuation, dividends. So Nilesh, yeah, okay, if the company is making profit, it makes sense to someone to buy those shares now, right? Because there is an expectation that it will still grow more. Okay, or if the company goes for a public issue, it can be extraordinary amount of valuation. Okay, like you could see shares that were given to people in something like 50 rupees, and the company after the IPO is trading at somewhere at 800. So just think of how many times it multiplies if it is a profit making idea. But at the same time, you are taking a risk because the idea may bomb. Okay, how many of you read this warning that comes all the time in the prospectuses and everything, that wherever you are investing in equity, you have to be ready to lose your entire investment. Okay, there are chances that you can lose your entire investment in equity if the market turns that way and changes that way, right? Subject to market risk, exactly. So wherever there is equity investments are subject to market risk. You read that, right? Where do you read that? Where do you read that? Equity investment in ads, in prospectuses, offer documents, everywhere, right? It's subject to market risk. So you can lose the entire investment. Mutual fund ad, yeah. They say that so quickly on the radio, isn't it? People hear that. Asterisk marks, bottom of the page, yes. Okay, so this is what, okay, so that's where, like, you have to look at that there has to be someone, yeah, mutual funds are subject to market risks. Okay, so wherever there are equity funds which are investing completely in equity shares, all equity investments are like that. You have to take a risk of losing your entire investment that you put. Okay, that is a risk that is involved always in equity. But naturally, people who are in this range, who are angel investors, PE investors, VC investors, these people are not like you and me. They have information sources. Okay, they are aware that what are the kind of changes that are going to happen in market. Where can someone increase their demand? Okay, and where can people actually put their products so that it sells more. They are aware of all of these things. They are aware of their own capability to help the startup as well, because they have a network like that. How many of you see Shark Tank? How many of you have seen Shark Tank? Say me. I see Shark Tank. Giant does, PR does. How many of you have seen Shark Tank? Some episodes, yes, yes. So in that, if you see the investors, they have a network, they have a source. Okay, so many times, like Lori and the Mr. Wonderful, these guys say that I can actually help you get into, into this domain. I can help you maybe get into a supermarket. I maybe help you get into. I may be able to help you get on the internet. So they are able to help the entity which they are funding to expand the markets. Okay, so these people are not the average investors. They are very well informed and they know how the business can expand. They know that they can help the business expand into certain zones also. Okay, so the kind of risk that they will be taking, despite it is still a risk where they can lose 100% of the investment, it is still a calculated, known, informed risk. They are aware. Okay, they are not doing it like in a tip based manner. How many of you work on tips? Okay, so many people will invest based on a tip and say that because your relative or xyz has invested in it, then they it must make sense to them. He's or she is a chartered accountant, so he must have thought, so let me also invest. Okay, how so many people do it like that. Government maintains startups fund from proceeds of capital gains of investors. Well, we'll come to angel tax and that about, like we'll see how that happens. Okay. But the point is this, that these people who invest, they are informed investors. Okay. They know the things. So they are not going to invest on the basis of some hearsay or something. They think, they check everything and then they invest. Okay. So this is what we kind of thought of. Why do they go for equity investments? Okay, we kind of already touched on the reasons that I may not even be able to get a funding from the bank because bank is looking for security. I don't have anything to give a security. I'm running the company entirely out of my home from something like this, or maybe a sharing workspace, or like some place I'm running the company out of it from. It's a completely technology based company. Okay, so there is no tangible assets. Okay, yeah, they can go for it when idea is too good. So like I may not be able to get a loan from the bank. I may not be afford to I may not be able to afford paying the kind of interest rate that the bank is looking for. So what I will do is I will now seek someone who is willing to invest in my idea, like a startup. Okay, and that's why I will give some sort of ownership to them also. Okay, because I even trust their ability to guide me. Okay, to go into this place or maybe meet some people, provide an access to their network. Okay, they may be able to guide how I do the business, whom I should go and meet, where should I expand to. They may be able to guide me do that. So then I will be willing to give some part of the ownership of my business to them so that I can get access to all of that. Okay. What is the basis or logic for convertible instruments? We'll come to that. So equity investments or capital investments is something that these startups or businesses may prefer to do that. Otherwise, what will happen is I don't want to give the ownership of my business to someone else. But in this case, the someone else is in a category where they will be able to help me expand my business. So I may be giving them a percentage of ownership of the business right now, but because they have helped me expand the business so much, even my value of the shares after diluting or after giving the investment to them increases a lot. Okay. So I may be holding 100% of the shares, but I don't have access to their expertise and network. Now I give them 10%, let's say, so I hold only 90% of the investment. Okay. But the value of my 90% is going to increase so much because of them. Okay. So I will be willing to dilute my ownership because I can get the access to their expertise, their network. Okay. So that's the reason they will move for equity. What is seed funding and what are series ABC funding rounds? Anyone is aware of what is seed funding? And why is this important for you to know? Like, why does this make sense for a lawyer to know this? Why is seed funding and what are the funding rounds? Why do you need to know this? Seed is initial funding. What are ABC rounds? The later rounds of funding, right? So A and B will probably second and all of that. So you need to know because your dynamics of the transaction, the terms of the transaction, the clauses of the shareholders agreement, these things will depend on whether it is seed funding or whether these are the later funding rounds. Okay, because in a seed funding there is no one sitting in the company before, it's just the founders and someone new comes in at that point of time. Okay. uh yeah. So like at that point of time there is no prior investor already sitting in the company. But when you are looking at series A, B, C, there are prior investors also sitting in the company. So when you look at the terms, you have to think of what it is that you agreed with the former investor. Okay, and obviously new terms will be agreed now, so it will be an entirely new document together with like the new investor who is coming in. We a completely new shareholders agreement, completely new transaction documents, but you have to think of what it is that the previous investor will be wanting. Okay, in the seed funding it's just between the founders and the new investors who has come, right? So with each round, there will be complications increasing because there will be certain expectations of the previous investors and there are going to be certain expectations of the investors who come. We will talk about the instruments, Anand, later, and that's the first thing, in fact, that we'll come to. So in many cases, like when you begin, it will be the first investment that you will be talking about. It's a new startup which has come and they will be looking for first time they will be looking or they'll be going outside to look investment from an investors. This is what, in large cases, more cases you'll be dealing with it because many businesses kind of, maybe even stop at seed funding. After that, they may not be able to or may not be looking to get any more investors in the town. It's only when the growth is that much and they are able to scale to that level that they will be looking at having more rounds of funding. Okay. So this is more, seed funding will be more because this is the first time the business will be looking for investment from someone outside. Right. And this is the first document you can advise on. What is a term sheet? What's a term sheet? What do you put? Like people have heard this. I'm pretty sure people have heard what a term sheet is about, and it has been read. And who makes a term sheet? If you are a lawyer advising the founder, will you be drafting the term sheet? Outline of main agreement. Founders. If you are a lawyer advising a startup business, will you be drafting the term sheet? That's the question. Who makes the term sheet? CS. Wow. If they want, why not? See, in most cases, what happens is that the investor will be providing a kind of a term sheet or some terms to the founders. Okay, there will be very few cases. Yeah, investors prepare. There'll be very few cases where you can have founders initiate and put their terms on the term sheet and give it to the investors. Okay, saying like, invest it or not. There may be startups like that. I'm not saying there are not. There may be startups whose idea has just clicked out of like, beyond all kinds of expectations. Okay. Term sheet, Madhav, is a document where you simply write down that I will invest in your company on these terms, or the founders will say that, this is how we receive investment, and these are 1, 2, 3, 4 things that we agree. Both of us agree that this is how the investment will be made. Okay, this is the amount, this is the price. Okay, what is the what are the transfer restrictions that you want? How will these securities be converted? What are the securities that you want to issue in the first place? All of those things will be put down in the term sheet. Okay, which I outlines terms and conditions for attractive investors. So it is not binding. Okay, but there can be some clauses in a term sheet which take a binding nature. Okay. Exit options to investors, yes, you can have all of this in a term sheet. Okay, so if you, how many of you have seen a term sheet now? I'd like to know this. How many of you seen a term sheet? I've seen a term sheet. Not seen? Me? Seen? Okay. So guys, even if you Google, okay, you simply Google up, you can find term sheets on the websites of certain investors. Okay, do a Google of who are the top investors or top private equity investors or venture capital fund investors, angel investors, something like that. Angels may not be having a website also, but you will, like, Google all of these things and then search for a term sheet on their website. You will be able to see that they may have a draft term sheet on their websites. Okay, let me actually show you how it looks. Okay, I will not get into that, the details of that, but I can just show you. Okay, for example, there is this term sheet here, which we kind of sometimes take up in the class to discuss. We discuss live term sheets in the class. We'll take it up uh, from the websites of the investors, and we open it up and we talk about the terms, and we talk about whether this works for a founder or investor or not. So this is like a term sheet. This is how it looks. Okay. This is just an example of how a term sheet looks. You want to Google, you can Google this K-Start term sheet. You will get this. Okay. And these are the terms that you will find on the term sheet. Okay. Let's come back to the slide. I just wanted to show you how the term sheet looks like. Okay. Now, what can you advise the lawyer on? If you are looking to advise the founders, okay, then what you will be advising on is, if you accept this term, what will be the implications for you? So you have to know that there are few terms that the investor has given, but if the founder accepts that, then what will be the implications? Because you'll meet many businessmen who are just hungry. They will say they want more funds, and they will kind of sign and agree to a lot of different things which they may not be aware of the implications of. Okay, so they will sign that, then they might agree to them. So you have to kind of tell them that if you agree to this, these are the implications of it. Okay, and although term sheets are not binding, okay, it is very difficult for you to go back and try to change a lot of terms on the term sheet at a later stage. Whatever negotiations have to be done should actually be done at a stage when the term sheet is being discussed. Okay, otherwise it is very difficult to go back and convince people that, now I want to change this term sheet. That kind of option is largely in the hands of the investor after they have done due diligence. So if they find something in the due diligence which is not what they had expected, they might want to change the terms after that. But if you are advising a founder, it's very, very difficult to go back and ask changing the terms of the term sheet later on. Even though it is non-binding, it's like, very difficult to convince and state and say that now we should change these terms for this. Okay. So whatever negotiation should happen at the time of the discussions on the term sheet, ideally. Okay. And what you can advise on is this, that if you are agreeing to, for example, a drag along or tag along clause, what is the meaning of that? What are the implications of that? What will the founder have to do when he signs that and agrees that? Okay, because founders can be, they are not lawyers. Okay, there may be lawyers also. If they've started the startup, then they understand everything and they don't need lawyers only. Okay, but usually these guys, these are technical people. They are marketing people, or they are operations kind of people. They are not really aware of what all these things mean. What they are aware of is that I want to grow my business and I need money. Okay, so where the lawyer comes in is that you have to tell them that this is what will happen when you agree to this, or this clause has this meaning. Okay, and for that, of course, you have to know what it means and what its implications are. Type of instrument. Here we come now. People who are questioning about CCDs and convertibles and all of that. Okay. So type of instruments can be what? Equity, which we discussed, is a high risk, high reward. You can lose everything. You can turn your 50 rupees share into 800 rupees share. Okay. Preference. Why out of interest? Like, if you Google most term sheets or most deals and read about it, these are into compulsorily convertible preference shares. Why? Yeah, Nilesh, why CCPS? Why compulsorily convertible preference shares? Why are most deals in that? Have you thought? And what are compulsorily convertible preference shares? I get people will not even have, people may not have an idea of this. So preference shares basically are shares where people have a preference in dividend and a preference in return of capital if the company goes bust. Okay. So if the company is making profits, then these guys get a dividend before the equity shareholders. If the company goes bust, then these guys get their capital or their money back before the equity shareholders. That's basically what a preference share is about. Okay. Everyone wants to get their money back first. They receive a fixed rate of dividend. Dividends can be paid later. Equity and common stock are same. Yes, Madhav. Usually the word common stock is used in US. Stock is where you can't distinguish the units. It's just a number. Hybrid. Hybrid instruments are those which are convertible. Okay, so now I am a bit, let's say that someone has started a business, but I am a bit shaky about it. I want to invest, but if it is profitable, then I want to get. But if it is making loss initially, then I want a chance that, I don't want to take that 100% risk of equity. Now, what do I do? So, this is like a finding a way in the middle. That's what hybrid or convertible instruments are. Okay, so they will say that, okay, what you do is you give me a loan. Preference and debt securities are not the same, Madhav. I'll come to that. Okay, hybrid. So what I'll do is I'll give you a loan. Okay, and what I will say is that initially this is a loan. Okay, and I want to get a fixed interest because I am quite shaky about your business idea. I think that if it clicks, it might click. If it doesn't click, then it may go bust. I don't know. I'm risky. I want to put money. I want to give you money. I have spare money which I want to give. But your idea seems to be a little bit doubtful to me. So what I will do is I will give you a loan for some period of time. Okay. And now if with that money, your business clicks, okay, you are able to scale up like how you are telling me you will do, then I will take shares of you. Okay, so I will convert the instrument of debt into equity. That is how convertible instruments are shaped. Similarly, there will be preference shares. That is, I'd say that I don't want the risk of losing 100% of my investment. And I want preference in getting dividend. And I want preference in case your idea goes bust. Okay. So I will take preference shares first. And then if your idea works, then we will convert it into equity. So the hybrid or the combined nature is like that, that for a certain period of time, you have a debt or a preference instrument. And after that, it is converted into equity shares, because now both the investor and the founder are sure that, okay, now the business is on a growth track. Okay. So that's how these instruments are shaped. Hybrid or joint or mixed instruments are like this. So that's like a convertible, it's like a convertible instrument. Is hybrid a form of long-term borrowing? No, it is not. It is just like a borrowing for a certain period of time, which gets converted into equity at a later stage. It may be 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, that is agreed between the investors and the founders. Okay. Preference and debt are not the same. Preference shares get dividend, and they get it only if the company is making profits. Okay, while in a debt, even if the company is making loss, it's mandatory, they have to pay interest. Okay, so preference shares fall somewhere in the middle between equity and debt, and hybrid instruments also form somewhere in the middle between shares and debentures. Okay, debt securities are bonds or debentures. Okay, but basically the idea is this, that I will initially give you a loan, or I will initially take lesser risk because I don't know if your idea works or not. But if it clicks, then I will become an owner and I will take 100% risk, because now I can, after a period of time, I can see that yes, you will be able to grow the company. Okay. Terms of investment. So, like how much amount will be invested at what point of time. Okay. uh, Transfer restrictions, if they say that, if an investor will say, because the investor will say that, okay, this founder is really brilliant, I know that he has very good ideas and he is going to develop the business a lot. But what will happen if I put money in the company and then this founder runs away and he sells his shares? So now this guy will not remain in the company. So my investment into the company will suffer. So what I will do is I will make some terms so that this person remains into the company. He holds shares in the company. He remains a director. Okay, I will put terms like that. So terms of investment, and these will basically be intended to protect the interest of investors. Valuation and angel tax implications. Angel tax, how many of you have heard of angel tax? What is angel tax? How many of you have heard of it? How many of you have heard of what is angels? This word, like, some time back there was a great uproar against this thing. Nobody's heard of angel tax. So normally, what happens, what is taxed? Okay, if you are earning an income, then the government taxes that income. That's how it is, right? You are selling something, you are generating business, and you earn an income, and the government taxes that income. Okay, whatever, depending upon how much you are earning, that's how it is. That's the normal thing that happens. But in angel tax, what is happening is that if someone is investing in your company, okay, someone is giving you, let's say, 10 lakhs to run your business and they are investing in your company, then if the value of your company is, let's say, 5 lakhs, but they are giving you 10 lakhs, the value according to the formula that the government is giving, in the Income Tax Act. So your company will be valued based on the formula that the government has given in the Income Tax Act. And if they find that based on that formula, the value of your company is only 5 lakhs, but you are taking 10 lakhs from investor, then they will say that this 5 lakhs additional which you are taking is your income and we will tax it. That's the logic of angel tax. Okay, and the basic idea why they did that was that people were actually like taking loads of money for, one share or things like that. They were taking excessive money from investors for the shares because valuation will depend on a lot of different factors. And that's why the founders were against this also, that if you do this, who will invest in my company? Because I am giving 10 lakhs, out of which some percentage will only go away to the government. Then what will remain to put in the business? Okay, so that's why founders were against this angel tax. Okay, as it happened. And so what they came to, again, they came to like, a solution in the middle. They say that if you are a startup who is registered with DPIIT, okay, and you have certain criteria like your investment or your capital and all after the investment is less than 10 crores, so which you are kind of growing startup, a starting kind of thing. Okay, but you are still profitable, as in the sense that your profits and all are in the 50 lakhs range. There are some conditions that are there. So you have to register and you have to meet those conditions. And if those conditions are met, then you don't pay this tax. Okay. So now what can you do as a lawyer? This is what you can do. Usually, if it is a seed funding startup, it will meet those conditions. Okay. And it will be as easy. This is not a very complicated process that lawyers can take up. If they are receiving investment, you can register your startup with the DPIIT as a startup. Okay. And in that, what will happen is that if it meets the conditions and it is registered, it will not have to pay angel tax. So you can make this difference as a lawyer with this. It's not a complicated process. Simply you go to the website of the DPIIT and you find it. It's an online registration. Okay. But you can do this and many founders will not know this. Okay. So you can tell them that, look, this is what will happen. I can register it with the DPIIT. There will be other benefits also that you can get by registering. Okay. So you can do this for a startup. You can register it with the DPIIT. What is DPIIT? It used to be DIPP before, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. Now it's called Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Okay, same thing. The website is dipp.gov.in. I can put that down in the chat, but this is something you can do and you can charge for this. Okay, you can do this even as a student. Okay, you don't require to be, you're not needed to be a lawyer for this. You can get registered a startup in this by taking certain information from them. It needs certain information to be filled up online. So you have to do that. DIPP, sorry, I think I made a typo. Okay. Due diligence. Obviously, like the investor will do a due diligence, okay, on the company. They will start looking at the documents. They will start looking at lots of different things. And here is where, if you are together with the founder at this time, when the due diligence start, because inevitably due diligence results in certain things being found out which the founder would not have expected. Okay, because it's a very in-depth checking, there will be certain things which are found out. So now if you are there with a founder or a businessman at this point of time to help in certain things, okay, they will be sold onto you. Literally, they will be sold. And what are those things? Ongoing litigation. Okay, so you have to, if there is an ongoing litigation that is there for the startup and you are aware of that, of the status, you are seeing what is happening. Okay, so you can get the kind of details, you can check of what is likely to happen. All of that you can look at and you can provide and advise the founders on what route to take. If there's ongoing litigation, there may be already existing lawyers involved who are doing this as well. But okay, you will just look at it on what's going on how to advise the founders and how to provide the details of that to the investors. Maybe you, if you have an idea that comes up now that you have been with the business, you may be able to look at, taking later litigations for the company as well. You may be able to suggest a better route or a better strategy that the existing lawyer takes on this litigation. Related party transactions, inevitably you will find in startups. This has to be there because in the basic stages, where will the money come from? The founders will have put money. Who is doing the work in that? It's the founder and the family and friends who are going to be doing the work. So they will be getting some payments in the initial stages, right? The first people you approach to is your family that, okay, can I, do you know someone else who's like that? Okay, will you help me sell my product there? Will you help me do this? And you may be making payments to them for doing that. Your cousins, whatever it is. Okay, so there will be related party transactions. Okay, usually these will be there. And most founders don't know that these are related party transactions. So if you are aware that this is how it is, okay, and it's a whole different chapter of discussion itself. If you are aware that it is a related party transaction, what is the kind of compliance that you need to bring to it? What will make it completely come out of any kind of regulations? Okay, all of these things, if you are aware of, then you can advise the founders on related party transactions. For example, I'll tell you one particular clause. Okay. AS 18 is an accounting standard. We are not talking about accounting standards here. We are talking about the requirements under the Companies Act for related party transactions. Okay, so there is a specific compliance that's required that you have to enter into for related party transactions. But one section or one proviso in the act says that if you are entering into these transactions at an arm's length basis, okay, and for normal business purposes, then nothing in that section applies to it. So just think of that. You may be able to advise a way, or you may be able to find a way so that nothing becomes applicable. But how do you do that and how do you document that? This is where the lawyer will come in. Okay, when you do these kinds of things to advise the founders, they will be really happy with you because you are setting everything as a system in order for them, and you are also making the company really ready so that the investor is not going to be able to find any loopholes. They can see that, okay, this is correct, it's complied with. Okay. Borrowing or deposits, this is another stunner that you can find. Okay, because like I said, where do the initial money come from in the company? Everyone will not be given the shares. So someone would have given an unsecured loan to the company. Okay, and that's what falls in the range of deposits under the Companies Act. Somewhere they will have borrowed some money from the bank. Okay, and whether that money works with the provisions of the Companies Act or not, you don't know. Okay, so all of those things, if you check and if you streamline it for them, that's when like they will be very happy. Intercompany transactions. Now, if there are 2 or 3 companies in the group, or maybe even partnerships and companies or things like that. Okay, if there are entities like that, multiple entities, and there are transactions between those, these are also regulated, and you can advise the founders on this. And these are all the things the investors will check and take out. They'll dig out. Okay, it's like an audit. So they'll dig out all of these things. Now, if you're standing with the founder at that point of time and saying that don't worry about it, I'll do this, I'll get these things in order for you. Okay, when you do that, that's when you can rely that they will always give you any of the later work after that. Labor law compliance, employment or consultancy agreements is another thing. Okay, they might not know properly how to draw employment agreements or consultancy agreements. They might not even have consultancy agreements with anybody. Okay, so they are hiring a consultant, they are giving invoice and they are making payments, and that's how it's happening, but there's nothing like a consultancy agreement in place. You will find this often. Okay, so you can arrange these things or put these things in order. Okay. Why is it relevant for the investor? Because if you don't have all of this and someday later someone comes up with some terms and states that this is how it was, and like, I initiates litigation. Investor doesn't want to take that chance. He'll say, get your house, get everything in order, and then I'll come and invest, right? Conversion terms, this is bolder, and this is like, something that becomes very technical and difficult for people to understand, because like I said, there will be hybrid instruments. Okay, but how do you decide? Okay, I am holding, let us say, 5,000 preference shares of the company, and I have to convert it into equity now. But how do I decide? So for that, do I get 5,000 equity shares? Do I get 2,500 equity shares because it has more value? Okay. Do I get 1,000 equity shares? What is the rate of conversion? How do I decide that? This is something that people get confused in a lot of times. But again, this is dependent upon the negotiations. Okay. And it is dependent upon the valuation of the company at the time of conversion. Okay. So this is a bit technical. I'm not going to dig into that, but this is what it is, and it needs consideration on how the shares will be converted. Drafting the transaction documents, naturally, you will be drafting the shareholders agreement or share purchase agreement or share subscription agreement. What is the difference between that? I guess people have gone through enough webinars on this now. Share subscription agreement. How many of you are not aware, don't know what is share subscription agreement? Don't know what is share subscription agreement or share purchase agreement? How many of you are in that zone? Okay, how many of you people know what it is? What is the difference between a SSA and SPA and SHA, which many lawyers get confused with, by the way? It's not the same as IPO. In one logic, it is yes, that it's a new issue of shares. Okay, Bushra knows that, yeah, because Bushra, you have been through that sessions. What about the rest of the people? SHA governs relations between investors and founders. SPA is offer for sale. Well, yeah, there aren't any agreements at the time of offer for sale like that. But yeah, it's close to that. Okay. SSA subscribe shares, SPA purchase shares, SHA governs shareholders and company. Okay, very good. Very good. SSA investors agree to invest, subscribe to shares of target company. See, the basic difference is where the money goes, okay? In a share subscription agreement, it's a new shares which are issued by the company. So the money goes to the company, okay? Money goes to the company. Okay, that's what you have to remember. For share subscription agreement, the investor's money goes to the company. Okay. So there are new shares which the investors get. There is no change in whatever people are holding right now. And it's all the completely new shares which the investors get. Money goes to the company. Okay. In a SPA, there are no new shares created. The existing shares get sold from the founders to the investors, and money goes to founders, doesn't go to the company. Okay, because they are selling the shares, so the money goes to them. So where does the money go? That's what you have to think when you are thinking of difference between SPA and SSA. And SHA, of course, is something like people rightly said, that decides the relations between the people, who has to ask whom when. This is what the SHA governs. Who should ask whom, about what, and when. All of those questions will be covered in SHA. So like, let's say the founder will ask the investor before selling his shares. The investor will ask the founder before selling their shares. The founder will ask the investor before taking certain decisions on the board. Like that. Okay, so who is going to ask what, to whom, and when? That's all those things are covered in SHA. Okay, to put it in a very simplified manner. Please repeat the statement. Right, let me write it down. Okay, who is going to ask whom for what and when? That's it. Okay, founder will ask investor for selling the shares at the time when he's looking to sell the shares. Okay, so who is going to ask whom for what and when? That's the interrelationship between the founders and investors that will be put in SHA. SHA we are going to discuss tomorrow. Be there, so we'll talk about SHAs in detail. What you put in an SHA. Okay. Altering constitution documents. Now, when I formed the company, I had certain rules. Okay, that X will do this, Y will do this. X and Y are the directors, they will be running the company. Their remuneration will be decided in this manner. Everything I had laid down in the rules, in the articles of association when I made the company. But now the big brother has come in, the investor has come in. So they want a say in deciding the rules. They'll say, I'll also, like, decide the rules with you. So whatever is put in the shareholders agreement as a change in the rules for running the company will now come into the constitution documents or articles of association. Okay, in that you will put down how the company is going to be run. Okay, does this make sense to people? Are you getting it? Say yes. Are you getting why we will change the rules? What is constitution documents? It's the rules by how the company is being run. Okay, brilliant. Everybody is getting it. ESOPs. What are ESOPs? What are ESOPs? Employees who have been given some share in the ownership, right? Employee stock option plans, so shares or options to employees. So they have a chance to become owners in the company if the conditions that are laid down in the scheme are fulfilled. They can become owners. Okay, if the conditions are fulfilled. Okay. So that's what, yes, incentives to employees through stakes. It is also an employee retention tool. So you want to keep them in the company. Basically, that's what it is. You want to keep the people in the company because, they should have some stake. They will have a stake of ownership. Not only that, they will work hard to increase the value of the company because the value of their stake is also getting increased together with that. That's why you give ESOPs. And ESOPs can be relevant to investors. Why? Why are ESOPs relevant to investors? Sweat equity shares and ESOPs. Utkarsh, it's a different topic. I'm not going to talk about that right now. I'm talking about why ESOPs are relevant to investors. They will be diluting the shares, right? ESOP, a convertible instrument, it's an option that is given to you to take the shares once you meet certain conditions. Okay. So what will happen is if the employees actually hit those conditions, they will also get the shares. Now, right now, let's say the investor is holding 10% of the capital, but tomorrow there are more shares that are created and the employees get additional shares of the company. So now that these people's 10% goes down to 6 or 7. So they'll say, look, my say in the company is going down. If you're going to give ESOPs to your employees and they're going to become the owners. Okay. Are you getting this? How the investor gets affected? The investor right now has 10% shares, but now you give more shares to the employees. So their percentage holding in the company goes down. So they have a lesser say. Okay, so they'll say that the founders and the employees will gang up and now they will just overrule whatever I'm wanting to do. That's why they are concerned that what is the ESOPs that you are giving right now, which you have given and which you are looking to give. Okay. So they will ask about all of that and they will make a provision for that. They'll think that, okay, make a provision that this is the maximum number of ESOPs you can give, so that we can be sure that maximum, if our share changes, it'll only be to this extent, not more than that. Okay. So they want the things like ESOP pools. They don't like ESOPs, Swapnil. It's not like they like ESOPs. But of course, if you have dedicated employees who are involved in growing the business of the company, the value of the investor shares is also growing. Their only concern is they don't want their percentage going down. Otherwise, their say becomes reduced. So they will say that, tell me what is the maximum ESOPs you are going to give, so that I come to know that this is the maximum of my share which is going to go down. Okay. And they know that it's not going to be more than that. So, okay, I'm convinced that this is the impact. I know it. Okay. So ESOPs are also something that impact the investments. And these are also something which the investors will look out for. And what can you do? You can do a lot of things now. The founder may not be having anything like an ESOP scheme in place. Okay. But he may be planning that. And therefore the investor will come and ask. So now you start everything for the founder. You draw up their ESOP scheme, you draw up their documents, their letters of grant for them, you draw up the terms or conditions for what you, when you want to give ESOPs to the employees. You set up a committee for them on who will decide on which employee to give ESOPs to. All of this you advise them as a lawyer, and it will come at this time because they will not have thought of this, but the investor will ask for this. Then they will suddenly think, okay, so you will do this. You can do the draw up the scheme for them. You can advise on what are the conditions they should set for eligibility of employee stock options. Everything you will advise them on. Okay. And this can be a very good source of income. Like, you draw up schemes, employee stock option schemes, grant letters, it can give you a good deal of money. Post transaction compliance with something like, I think it is often said that people forget. So you've got the money, you've allotted the shares, but then now you forget to file that return of allotment. Okay. And you forget to put the transfer in your annual return. It is like, you climb a whole mountain and then there is a small pool, you get drowned in that. That's how it is. And that's what happens in many deals. Like post transaction compliance sometimes gets ignored because it is boring and people are not really very interested in that because it's procedure, it's not substantive. But this is how it can happen. So you've done the whole deal nicely, done a stunning shareholders agreement, done everything, and you just don't file the return of allotment or things like that. Okay. So this is post transaction compliance, and it is very important for you to take care of these kinds of things, because you don't do this, it obviously lands into a penalty which the investor doesn't like. So therefore this is something that needs to be taken care of. Okay. So did people get these broad terms that we are talking about? Anyone has any specific questions? I know we have already gone beyond our time, but I'm going to give a couple of minutes for questions if people have. Investors don't stipulate the conditions for ESOPs, Nilesh, but they want to know what is the ESOP pool or the amount of ESOPs that you are looking to give to the employees. Bushra, every company does not have to have ESOPs. They may not have. They may not have that level of employees. A bit on the nature of ESOPs. So it's a choice. It's a document which will give you a right to purchase the shares of the company at a fixed price. Okay, so I will just write to you and say that you have a right to buy 100 shares of the company at this price, at let's say 100 rupees. So I'll fix the price right now itself. When we use the word startup, does it need to have any registration of sorts, or is the term used very loosely? In business terms, yes, it is used as any entity which doesn't have an established market and a customer base. Okay, as simple as that. But when you register it with the DPIIT, it takes terms of that. Okay. So it will be startup in the sense of how DPIIT is calling it. Okay. Any more questions? Basically, it is meant to describe someone who doesn't have that much of an established market yet. They are developing and they are growing. Okay. That's what a startup is. Recently started, doesn't have a very established market or base. Okay. Not like everybody in the country will definitely know about them. That's what it is. Any questions? Other questions? Quickly, then we'll move. Can a family member or relative of a founder invest a small amount, say rupees 1 lakh, along with the investor's huge amount? Yes, Jayant, they do. In fact, when companies go for funding rounds, you can have multiple people putting money at that point of time. You take some money from investors, some additional money founders bring by themselves, some money they create from relatives or other acquaintances or family. It can be like that. Many people may be contributing at that time. Post transaction compliances will depend upon the nature of the transaction, Bushra. If you are allotting new shares, you will have to have issue the share certificates, or you will have to credit the shares to their electronic accounts if they have. You will have to file a return of investment. If there is any non-resident investor involved, then there will be FEMA compliances which you have to take care of. Okay, all of these things will be post-transaction compliances. When you alter your constitution documents, there is a filing that is required for that also. You need to convene a general meeting, have a resolution, and you need to file that with the registrar that you have altered your constitution documents. So these are all post-transaction compliances. Okay. Okay. This is a workshop which you guys can take, and I'll exit. I'll put the link here for you guys. All of you, see, given that all of you are students, you may be looking at this and it says, are you looking to get a job before you graduate? Okay. Are you looking to get a job before you graduate? You want to graduate with a job in your hand. You don't want to land in a situation where I have finished school. Now I am looking for a job. Now there are 6 months, 7 months that are going to be passed before I actually get something really worthwhile. Okay. You don't want to land in a situation like that. Okay. So this is where you can get, it's a workshop that's going to be done by Ramanuj, and he is going to be talking about how can you graduate with a job. Ijas, yes, you can join. Okay, there are no eligibility conditions that only student can join. But what is going to be discussed in this workshop is this: that how do you graduate immediately with a job in hand? How do you plan in such a way so that you already have a job? Okay, when you come out as a lawyer. Okay, so you can take this, and there can be a lot of advising startups is one thing which is very huge. And all of the things that I discussed today, there is no mandatory requirement that these should be done by a lawyer. It can be done by a smart law student who knows these things, right? And we actually teach this in our M&A courses, in our companies ec course. We teach all of these things. So if the point is, if you know how to explain this or how to guide entities on this, it's not mandatory that you have to be a lawyer. Okay, you can do it if you know how to do this. That's the bottom line. The workshop is on 24th PR. Okay, if you click on the link, you will know the date, time, everything. 24th from 6 to 9. Make sure that you join. Okay, and if you join in this WhatsApp group here, let me put the link of this again. Then you can be given the links and you can be told about all the webinars, as well as we can be discussing interesting things in this. Okay. There are people we can have really engaging discussions in these WhatsApp groups, and it can be on lots of different things. Okay, it can be on law, it can be on career. You will also get information of all webinars, workshops, everything in this. Okay, but 24th, 6 to 9, don't miss this if you are looking to have a job in your hand before you graduate. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being there. So, how many of you got something out of the webinar today? Okay, you learned something, you got something out of it. Okay, and if you have to rate the webinar from 10, how will you rate it? Ijaz is giving me 10. Thank you, Ijaz. What about the rest of the people? Didn't get link of what, Krishna? The WhatsApp group is here. The workshop is here. Both. You want to put that? Okay, let me put that once again for you guys. This is the workshop link. Okay, I'll try to change the here. Now did you get it? That's the workshop link. And that is the WhatsApp group link. Thank you guys so much. Next steps from here. Join the workshop. We're going to do a Q&A. Okay, and we'll talk about the next steps. Join the WhatsApp group. We're going to do a Q&A. Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye. Nazam never heard of this. We'll talk about this all the time.